Hi, and welcome to another video by Jim the Car Guy. Today we're going to be doing rear brakes and rotors on the 2006 Honda CRV. Now a lot of the Honda CRVs are all very similar to this. I will put a link down below what year it actually covers, from what year to what year this particular vehicle. But this one, like I said, is a 2006 CRV. What happens is the other side of the vehicle was touching into the indicator and making a squeaking type noise, which, as you can see, or maybe you can't see, this is the disc indicator there. You see how it's shiny? That's because the brake pad wore down and it was touching into the rotor on the other side. So instead of doing anything as far as resurfacing or trying to do anything with these rotors, they are very rusty, so we're going to be throwing them away and putting a new set of rotors on there. So I'm going to bring you in, I'm going to show you what kind of tools you're going to need. I'll explain the procedure of how to go about getting it done, and then we're just going to do it. This job is fairly easy. It's really not that difficult if you just make sure of a couple of different things. One thing in particular is you got to make sure that your slide pins slide nice and freely, and the next thing is you have to make sure that the hardware itself, which is where the brake pads sit into, is not rusted or in need of replacement. Whenever I do a job, I always replace the hardware at the same time. You'll avoid a lot of headaches by doing it. Even though you're going to save a few bucks by getting the brake pads that come without the hardware, don't do it. Get the hardware kit. You'll be happy in the long run. All right, so let me bring you in there. I'm going to show you what we're going to do, and we're going to get started. So come on in, I'll show you. Okay, this is the rotor itself here. What we're going to do is we're going to take out this little piece right over here. This is where you adjust your parking brakes from. So we're going to take this out and put it off to the side. We're going to reuse it later on. We are going to take out these screws right here. These screws, I get a lot of emails from people saying, why do you put them back in? You can just throw them away. Me personally, whenever a car comes with a component such as a screw, I always try to put it back in unless the screw breaks off or it's extremely rusty. All right, so I'm going to show you how to get these out without damaging them. It's very easy. Then we're going to come over here by the caliper itself. We're going to go in the back over here and we're going to remove that 12mm screw there and that 12mm screw right there. And then we're going to pull this caliper up and out of the way. Then we're going to take out this screw over here. I think that's a 14mm if I'm not mistaken. This one, and there's one more down the bottom right over here, someplace right down in there. All right, and we're going to take this caliper, put it off to the side, and then we're going to take this mounting bracket off and we're going to clean that up. And then we're going to pull the rotor off and then we'll put it back together. All right, this is an example of what you're going to need to do the job. A hammer, any kind of hammer, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as you can hit something with it. We're going to need something like this, a metal drift, a couple of different screwdrivers, whether it's a long one or a short one, a couple of screwdrivers, a ratchet with a fairly long extension. The longer the extension, the less, the easier the bolts will come out. All right, of course, we're going to need a socket, and I will tell you this, make sure you use a 6-point socket. Don't use a 12-point. A 12-point is just going to cause you a problem. All right, again, a 6-point, and this one is a 14mm. All right, we're going to need something like this to push the piston back in on the caliper, just in case you can't push it in all the way. Now, when you try to take these screws out, if they're too rusty in there or they don't come out, I use something like this, an impact driver. You basically just take it, put it on here like this, and you hit it a few times on this end over here, and it rotates the screw out. But we'll see how that goes. We're going to use a hanger to support the caliper when we're working. We may not need it. I may be able to just stick the caliper right up inside here or up on top here, but we'll see how that goes as well. We're going to need possibly an 18mm wrench, and the reason I say that is because sometimes when you try to take out these bolts right here, you may have to hold this. Actually, I'm wrong. It's a 17mm wrench, so we are going to get the right size now. So we're going to put our 17mm wrench on here, and then we'll take these bolts out right here. We may need a file or some emery cloth or a scraper to clean off any kind of rust buildup, and that's it as far as tools. What we're going to be replacing then is this rotor. We're going to use a new rotor. These rotors, as you can see, it's a little bit oily inside there. You see that oil in there? We're going to clean that off with some brake cleaner. We're going to clean off the back part of the rotor, the inside part where the parking brake shoes go, and we're also going to clean this side over here. course, our new brake pads. And like I said, we are changing the hardware. This is an anti-rattle clip to keep the brake pads from rattling. And this is the hardware that goes up against the shoe itself. We're going to need some synthetic brake grease. And of course, we're going to need some brake cleaner. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to come over here now and we're going to take these screws out here and here, and we're going to take that out right there. Alright, so let's get started with that. Okay, now sometimes, like I told you, these screws here are pretty rusty and we can't get them out. That's when you just take a brass drift or any kind of a piece of metal, put it on top of the screw itself, and you strike it a couple of times to break the rust free. Okay, and now we'll try to take them out. And as you can see, when you hit them a couple times, they just come right out. They're really not that rusted in there. Okay, we're going to put these to the side because we are going to use them. We're going to take out this little piece right here. It's just a rubber seal. Get underneath it with a screwdriver and you pull it. And you can take it right out. That's all there is to it. Alright, so now we're going to leave this right here for now, and we're going to come in the back over here, and we're going to try to push that piston back in just a little bit, but we'll see how that goes. We'll get in the back here with a screwdriver. It comes through right in this corner right here, and then we're just going to keep a little bit of pressure on it. And you see how that piston pushed back in? It pushed all the way back in, probably pushed all the way back in, but we'll see when we take it apart how it goes. Now you push the slide, the caliper back and forth, and now we know that these slide pins right here are both okay because they're sliding the way they're supposed to be. Sometimes these get rusty, and if they're rusty, then the mounting bracket or possibly the caliper would need to be changed. But as long as they slide freely like this, we're in good shape. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're going to take out those two screws there. Those are 12 millimeters. Now sometimes when you try to take these out, you know what, let me just go get that 17. Sometimes when you try to take this screw out right here, the entire slide pin turns. If that's the case, you just hold it with the 17 millimeter like that, and then you can rotate it out. But that's not the case right now. So we're going to take these out. Again, we're not going to lose these because we have to reuse them. Same thing here. And you want to have cardboard or something on the ground when you're working because rust will be falling out. And then I don't know if you can see it here, but you see how close this one is to the indicator? This one is not as close as the other one. The other side itself was actually touching right into it right there. But this side is very close, but not touching. All right, so we're just going to put this right on top of the control arm in the back here. We're going to take this brake pad here out, and this will be trash. Next thing we're going to do is going to take out those two 14 millimeter bolts in the back. When you break these bolts loose, you want to break them both loose before you take them out totally. So you break one loose until you can turn it by hand, and then you come down on the other one, and you do the exact same thing to break that one loose as well. Because if you take out the one screw, I'll show you what I mean. If you take out the one screw and you try to break the other one loose, the caliper mounting bracket is going to rotate as well. So that's why you want to break them both loose before you take it out. Okay, and now we'll take our bracket off. And this is the hardware right here I was telling you about. These you're just going to push them off like that. And this one comes up right here. I'll show you a screwdriver. You just go underneath it and you push it up and it comes right off. And underneath here is where we're going to clean up any kind of rust that's in here. A little bit of rust here, so we're going to clean that up too. But first let's take this rotor off right here. Now this rotor comes right off. But I'm going to tell you this, if by chance you try to take this rotor off and it does not pull off, see this screw, this hole right here? That's when you have to rotate this around to the bottom. And I'll show you. I'll bring you in here and I'll show you what I mean. You see down in here? You see this little star wheel right here? You need to get in here with the screwdriver. Let me just turn this so I can show you real quick. Okay. What you would do is that hole right there on the top, this hole right here, you would rotate that hole until it's right down on the bottom right here, and then you would come in here with the screwdriver like this, and then you would turn this up like this, and that would take the adjustment off on the parking brake. But that's not the case here. We were able to get it right off without a problem, so we don't have to worry about that. Now when you put the rotor back on, you want to make sure you put it on the same way that you took it off. These holes have to line up with the new holes in the rotor. We are going to clean off this rust right here with some emery cloth here and here. And let me clean these off right now. We're going to clean this up here. We're going to open this bag up. We're going to clean out the oil on there, and then we'll come back and put this back together. Okay, now we take our rotor and put our rotor back on. Remember, you can line these screws up right here. This hole here and these holes, all right? So put it on over the top like this. And you can see the two of them line up right here. Now we did clean off that rust inside there. Again, I'm going to put a little bit of grease on each one of them. Okay. I'm just going to make sure this is tight. Okay. Now, if you had to take the adjustment off on the parking brake, at this point you want to bring this to the bottom here and you want to adjust this until you have slight drag on the parking brake shoes itself against the rotor. But that's not the case here. I did not have to back it off, so we're going to be fine just the way it is. When you do that, you're going to have the car in neutral, so make sure you chalk off the wheels in the front so that way it doesn't really roll at all when you jack it up. But we don't have to do it here. We're in good shape. This one, we just take it and we push it in just like that. And that's how that goes. All right, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to clean up this mounting bracket right here. We're going to get all that residue off there. We're just going to take a file and we're going to clean it up right here so that's nice and clean. So let me clean this up here, and we're going to change our battery pack, and we'll come right back. I always clean up in the back right over here because that's where the part of the mounting clip gets connected to. Okay. So now we have everything cleaned up pretty well. Let's put some brake cleaner on our rag. Let's clean up the mounting surfaces. Okay. Now we're going to take a little bit of the synthetic brake grease. You're going to put it underneath where the mounting hardware is going to go, just like that. You just rub it in just a little bit. Okay. Okay, now we'll grab our hardware and we'll put that in. The hardware goes in just like this on the bottom here, and you push it down. And you make sure that these little clips here push all the way up against their flush. Same thing right here, just like this again. Okay, make sure that they're flush right up against there. All right, so that's all set now. The hardware is in. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take out these little slide pins right here. You hold the rubber with your hand, pull it back a little bit, and you take the slide pin and you pull it out. Now we're going to take a little bit of brake cleaner. I'll go on a rag again, and we're going to clean off the grease that's on there now, so that it's nice and clean, and we're going to put new grease on it. Okay, just put a little bit. Now remember, you don't need a lot. You need just a very, very thin coat. So in this case, too much is not enough. I mean, too much will be actually a problem. Then we take it and we put it back in through here, and you rotate it, turn it in, and you push it until that rubber boot snaps up into there, like that. See? Same thing on this one then. Hold the rubber, pull it. We're going to take some brake cleaner on a rag, clean it off. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit on there. Again, not too much, just a little bit, just like that. Very sparingly. Okay? And then we take it, push it in here. You could rotate it when you push it in, it makes it go a little bit easier. And then you push it in until it pops up, and you can see how they slide nice and freely. Now if you had too much grease in there, it will come oozing out through here. That's why you want to do it sparingly. All right, we're going to put a little bit of brake silicone here. You're using very little again, and we're just going to spread it around right where the brake pad touches, very sparingly. Okay. And now we're going to take our mounting bracket and we're going to put it back onto the car itself. So let's do that. You hold it up in here like this, and you put one bolt in and catch it on top first. And then you're going to catch your second bolt, same thing, down on the bottom right here. And you screw them in as far as you can by hand. Okay. Now our caliper, as you can see, is sitting right on top of this knuckle here. But if it wasn't, you could support it up out of the way with a hook like this. All right, now we're going to snug these bolts up. Okay. All right, let me go get a torque wrench. I want to torque them, and then we'll come right back. Okay, now that these are torqued, we're going to take this, and we're going to, our piston looks like it did not push in all the way. It's still sticking out just a little bit right here. So we're going to push that piston back in a little bit further. All right, and the way we're going to do that is we're going to take our tool like this. There's lots of different tools you can use. This just happens to be one example. We're going to take our new brake pad, put it in here like this, put our tool in there like that. Let me get this set here and then I'll explain to you what I'm doing. Actually, maybe you can see it. You see how I was pushing that piston back in? Okay, piston's all the way back in as far as it can go now into the bore. We're going to take our tool out. Take our new brake pad off to the side. And now with this brake pad here, we're going to take it and push it, and it comes right out. Okay? We're going to put this down for 1 second here. Now, when you put the new brakes in, you'll see this is the old brake pad that came off, and you can see where the indicator is right here. You want to make sure the brake pad that you put on, that the indicator is in the same exact location, because it can either be on this end or it could be on this end. So make sure that they line up exactly the same. Okay, so we'll put this into the trash. This is going to be our new one. You don't want to get too much grease on there. But before we do that, you see this clip right here? We're going to take this clip out and we're going to put in a new clip like this. And the way you do that is you're just going to push it up like that, grab it with a screwdriver, and you pull it out just like that. And then to put it back in, you do the exact same thing. You put the clip in on the top like this, you push it up like that, and then we use our screwdriver to push it all the way back in. Sometimes a little tight. Now you want to make sure that that clip is even on the top right here. You see how it is here? So that it fits evenly in here between both sides. And that's what our clip looks like on here, just like that. Again, we're laying that on top of the knuckle. We're going to take a little bit of grease and put it on each one of these little tabs here, just like this. It makes it go into the piston a little bit easier. So we'll just push it in here like this. Okay. And now we'll take our other brake pad. Remember, you want to keep this as clean as possible. We're going to put it in here like this, and then we'll take our mounting our caliper, and we're going to slide it over the top like that so it fits nice and freely. Okay? But before we do that, okay, we're going to edit part of that. Okay, now we're going to take a little bit of grease, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do. We're going to put it on our fingers here, and we're going to put it right up here where the brake pad is going to touch, just like that. Okay? Now we'll take our brake pad, put it into the mounting bracket, and we're going to bring it over the top here, and we're going to push it down, And these little slide pins here, you may have to push them in a little bit, but then it pushes right in. So you may have to push the slide pins in so that the caliper goes over the top. We're going to catch one bolt first up on the bottom here. It's personal preference. If you want to do top or bottom, it doesn't really matter. But one of them won't line up. And you see that? It pops back up. That's because the anti-rattle clip is actually pushing up against it. So now we're just going to push it down a little bit, and we'll catch our second bolt. And we'll grab our ratchet, and we're just going to snug these in. See what I was telling you about this rotating here? If that's rotating, you come in here with a wrench, just like that, and you can hold it and tighten this up. Okay. Same thing on the bottom here. Now you can see this one, I didn't have to hold it with the wrench. It actually stayed nice and tight. All right, so let me bring you in there. I'm going to show you. We're going to go over all of the details, and we're going to wrap this job up. Okay. Okay, we put our rotor on. We cleaned off everything on here. That was actually, this is just paper towel lint here. We cleaned off this rotor here to get all of that grease off of it during the shipping. We cleaned the outside, the inside, and where the parking brake goes. We put our 2 screws back in to hold the rotor to the vehicle. We put our little plug back in here. But before that, we made sure that the parking brake shoes were adjusted first. And you remember how to do that with the little screwdriver. Next thing we did is we put our new hardware on, the mounting bracket. We cleaned off all the rust that was underneath here. And we cleaned off all of the rust that was on this part over here as well. We put our new hardware kit on. We put our new rattle clip in. We put our mounting bracket on, and we torqued our mounting bracket back on. We put our new brake pads in place, and then we tightened up these 12mm bolts that hold the caliper to the mounting bracket. And of course, if we had to hold these, we did. All right, so that's pretty much it. Okay, so that's it. Our brakes are all back together. I will tell you this, you may wind up with a very slight burning smell when you drive the vehicle because the new caliper and the brake pads and the rotor, you'll get some kind of a little like a oily type burning smell. Nothing to worry about. It burns off very quickly and you're good to go. All right, next thing you want to do is before you drive the vehicle, you're going to put the wheels back on, obviously. Once you get the wheels back on, you're going to sit in the vehicle and you're going to pump the brake pedal up. The first time you step on it, the brake pedal is going to go right to the floor, but don't worry about it. It's supposed to do that. What's happening now is that piston is being pushed back in place. Where we had, remember we put that tool in and we pushed the piston back? This time what's going to happen now is that piston is going to push back out until it comes in contact with the rotor itself. And that's it. You're all set. All right, so we're going to wrap this job up, take it for a ride. We're going to turn our air conditioner on, and we'll road test to make sure it's good. All right, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.